Okay, so you click on this, and this will ask you from which table you want to pick the pivot table from. So if you have named your table before, you can just click on this option here, and then it will pick the table. You can just put in the table name that you want to use. Now, this particular table is table 3, and that is what we'll be using for our analysis. Now, I want to quickly explain what we have here. So on this particular column here, we have transaction ID. And if you move a little bit further, we have the date, we have product, we have category, we have region, we have salespersons, which is more like the name of the salesperson. Then we have the unit price the person sells. Then we now have the unit price. Sorry, this is the units, the amount of item the person sold rather. Then this is the unit price of each of those items. And then we have our total price. Now, this total price is going to be the unit price multiplied by uh, the number of units the person sold, which in this case is 250 or 2,598. Now, this is one of the places John Smith sold. If you move down, you'll see that John Smith also have 10 items here, and then he also sold another one item here, and so on and so on. The same thing with Mary Johnson, Bob Williams, and other people. So it's more like we have uh, different kind of items that the person has sold. Now, if you move further, you are going to see the total sales, which is the units the person sold multiplied by the amount of each items will give you this total sales. Then we also have payment method. In this case, it could be credit card, it could be uh, cash, it could be debit card also. Then over here, we also have customer segments. So for the customer segments, we have business and we have customers. So it's more like two people we're expecting to get these items. So this is giving us like a basic picture of what our data will look like. So we are going to go ahead and add our pivot table. So I'll come here, click on from pivot table, click on this option here, and then it will bring us here. So so far, is there any question? Does anybody have a question so far? Okay, go ahead if you have a question. You can just put it on the chat. I'm going to see it. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and I'll come back and check the chat. So, but you can leave your question in the chat. All right, so this is our pivot table, and this is what you would get in your pivot table. Now, this area is the field where you would have your pivot table display. And then over here are the various fields of your table. So if you look at this, these are all the fields that are in your table. So if I come back to sales record here, you would see that these same items I have here is the same items I have in this area here. Okay, then you can also search for any of these fields, assuming that you have a field and this is very long and you can't find it, then you want to search for it. You can just type it in here, date, and then this will help you provide the field you are looking for. And then at the top here, we have the tools. Now, these are various tools anyway. These settings will help us show what your table or what your pivot table field will look like. If I use this first option here, you'll notice that it changes to something like this here. And then if I come here and then I choose this option here, you are going to get something like this. So, may I just like this particular one here because I can easily drag my items to this place here and to go ahead and give me the figure. All right, then at this area here, we have the filter field, we have the rows, we have the column, and then we have the uh, values. And then one of those things I want to mention, anytime you insert your pivot table into Excel sheets, or anytime you create a pivot table, an additional tab is usually created at the top here. The tab is meant to help you use the pivot table. So inside this tab here, you can now adjust your pivot table. For example, I don't want this field to be visible. I can just choose this option here and then my field will go. I want it to come back. I choose this option here, then it will come back. So this pivot table analyze is meant to help you adjust your pivot table. Okay, so if you have a question on this area, please just leave it on the chat. I'm going to go through it, then we'll answer the question. Okay. All right, let's proceed. Let's proceed. Okay, so before you start your analysis, there's some things I normally tell people to do, especially if you are starting for the first time. When you are starting your analysis for the first time and you have your record like this, what I usually advise people to do is to compare this particular area of items or items, compare it with values with amount. For example, I have this place which is products. Now, since you are just starting, you don't compare products and category together or products and region together. What I will advise you to do is to compare products and units, products and unit price, products and total price, which is more like you comparing letters and numbers. Yes. So it doesn't mean that this is the only way you can analyze data, but at least it make more sense when you actually make use of it. So I can compare these products with unit price. I can compare products with total price, and it's going to give me something that makes sense. Yeah. Yes. So whenever you are doing your analysis, just make sure that you have them inserted. Now, if you are just running two analysis, well, the two can go. Now, if you are running more than two analysis, maybe you want to use three columns for your data analysis. That makes sense. That means you can now compare your category or your products with region, with unit price. Then that will make sense. So it's more like we are now inserting two text, one numbers, yeah, or two alphabetic characters or values with um, one numeric value or one numeric column that contain value. So when you now make your analysis at that point now, it will now start making sense to you. Let me give you an example of what I'm trying to say. Now, let's assume that I have various products here. I have products here. And I want to find out the highest sales products. The highest sales products. Now, I'm not going to say products compare with category. No, I'm going to say products compare with total sales. Now, how do I do that in our pivot table? So I'll come back to this pivot table. Now, remember I said products. I'm going to move these products to rows. Now, you'll be wondering, why not just move the products to column? Well, you can move the product to column, but you are not going to be getting your values arranged like this. Like, for example, if I move this here, it's going to be this other way. Okay. So I think this option is the best you can make use of to have your values here. Yeah. Now remember, we are comparing our products with total sales. So I'm going to come here, I'll pick this, I'll bring it back to value here. So it's more like my product is in the row and then my total sales is going to be in the value. Now, when you do this, you're going to see the sum of total sales of each product, the sum of total sales of each product. So this is sum of total sales of each product, which is this product I have here. Now, I said we are looking for the highest value. So you just scroll down like this, you will see your total sales. Although you can actually rearrange this in from the max, the lowest one. We'll look at that later on in the class. But this will tell me that Laptops Pro has the highest number of sales so far in terms of price. Now, if you are looking for the highest item sold, now this is total sales, which is in terms of price. If you are looking for the highest unit of products that was sold, you're no longer going to just talk about total sales. You now look at the units here. So I can bring my units here. And then over here, I now have my unit item there. So if you scroll down, this will give you more sense. So over here, we have the Ethernet cable 10 feet. It has over 20 units of items sold. It doesn't have the highest price because the unit price is actually less, but it sells more. The Ethernet cable sells more than other items. So you can now use this to actually look at your items. So if you have a question, please just at it, then I would answer your question. Okay. All right, let's go on. So now, what we have actually looked for is the total amount of each items, and then we're inside that total amount of each item, we're able to find the one that the item that has the highest price sold. Then we also know which one has the highest units sales, which is what we have here. Now, this is not the only thing we can do. We can also do other thing also. We can do other analysis also. Let's say, for example, we want to know who sold the highest product. Want to know who sold the highest product. So I can move this to the row. Then I can move total sales down here. Now over here, you will see we have 4 people that actually engage in this selling of items. And then over here, we have John, we have Bob Williams, we have Mary Johnson, we have Sarah Davis. And John Smith actually have the highest item sold here. So his own sales so far is actually 5,547. Now, when you are actually analyzing data, what you are trying to achieve majorly is to help people make good decisions. For example, why am I doing analysis on this data? We might want to know, okay, who in the end of the month has the highest sales, because you are thinking of giving the person bonus or um, best staff of the week or best staff of the month. And then we want the factor that should determine that should be the number of items that was sold or who have the highest sales. So over here we have John Smith. John Smith actually sold 5,547. So when you use this will actually tell us who has the highest sales, and then we can now use that to make our decisions or help our people make decisions. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this back to get back. Now you see we can now determine who has the highest sales. Then another thing we can also find out is we can also find out what payment method is used the most. So after those sales that has been mailed, we want to know which of the payment method is used the most. Is it credit card people like using, or debit card, or people like using cash, paying in cash. So in this case, I'm going to bring this down here to the row. I'm going to bring this to my total sales here. Now, from these results here, we can now see that credit card is what people use the most for purchases. So when you are now advising these people, when you are advising the people in the company, maybe you can now tell them that they should focus more on implementing credit card around their sales outlets, because people use credit card more than other one. So in that case, instead of employing more people or more cashier to actually receive cash from customer, they can actually reduce their employment of cashier or focus more on implementing credit card features so that people can actually make purchases using credit card. Now, how did we know that? It was We use this our analysis to know that. Now, if you want to also know, people also use debit card also, but credit card actually have the highest figure there. The difference is just very clear. So your recommendation for this company is going to be that they should make use of credit card. They should implement credit card more for for their outlets. All right. Now, another thing we might want to also check, we might want to check which of the customer segments actually have more purchases. So I'm going to move this here, customer segment. Then I can also move this total sales here. So for the customer segment, we have the business and the customers. So over here, this is telling us that the company should prioritize businesses because they do the more purchases than normal customer. Okay, all right. So these are just various features that you can actually implement to um, give advice to the company so they can actually make decision based on your analysis here. All right. So no questions so far. No questions so far. Please, if you can hear me, please can you give a reaction so I can know you are with me? Please give a reaction if you can hear me. Hello, can you hear me? I need to know that you are with me. Can you give a reaction, please? All right, all right. Thank you. Okay, so let's continue. So we've actually handled a lot of stuff. You'll see here that we look at how we can actually compare and other stuff. Now, another thing we can also do, we can also decide to know which region has the highest sales. Which region has the highest sales? So if I move this down here and then I move my total price here, okay, let me move this to um, this area here. So we have four different regions. We have the east, we have the north, we have the south, and then we have the west region. And then over here is very clear that northern region has the highest sales, followed by east, then followed by other region. Now with this, we can also tell the company to actually prioritize the north region, although other region are actually should be given consideration, but northern region has something features like it has a very good sales. So they can now start maybe make more research or make more findings on the northern region because it has the highest sales. Okay. All right. So these are just some of those basic things that can help you decide. I can help you decide number of information or give you something meaningful from the whole data that you are looking at so far. So from here, we actually know that northern region actually have a lot of sales. So this can be a good features that you can use that you can use to advise the owner of the company on making decisions. All right. So now what we have done so far is to compare two values together. Now, there are other things we can also look for in data. So far, we have been looking at data based on um, two different data. We try to compare two different data to see how they behave. And then what we are looking at is the total sales. Now, we can also decide to know um, the average sales of a particular product or the average sales of a particular region. Let's take, for example, let's get to know the total average sales of a particular region. So if I move this to this row here, and then I move this down here, sorry, here, this is telling me an amount here. It's giving me an amount, which is the total of sum of total sales in the North region. But what we are looking for is the average sales. So to get the average sales, you are going to right click here. And in this summation, you are going to pick average here. So you would see that in an average, the East region has more sales than the North region, the Northern region. Now, what does this mean? When I talk about average, what does it really mean? Now, what this is saying is that there's a specific amount that is more like the center amount, and then many people buy products around that amount. So it could be a little bit bigger, then it could be a little bit lower, but it will be around the amount. For example, from here, we can say that more people bought products that is around 623 in the East region. That means more people bought products of around $623. Then in the Northern region, though it has a very big sales, but people bought the price of those products they bought was around $616 here. So that average is more like the a number that is in between something. Let's take, for example, we have people that write exam. Then we now say 60%, on an average, 60% of people pass the exam. On an average, 60% of people pass the exam. Now, what they are trying to say is that out of all the people that wrote the exam, 60% of those people actually had an amount that is above that, yeah, is around the 60% of people scored like average. Okay, yeah. So this is some of those some of the features you can use to determine. Now, I don't want to go in depth and start talking about average because you need to look for mean and then before you can now check those out. But for people doing data analysis, they understand that. Okay, so here we can now get an average. So you can also decide to get other stuff also. We can know the minimum amount sold. So over here in the East region, the minimum amount that was sold is actually 150. In the West region, the minimum amount sold is 64. So if I right click, I also want to get the highest amount sold. I can also say max. This is showing that the highest amount that was sold in the East region is actually 1,598. So in the East region, people selling in the East region, the highest amount that they sold, the highest amount sold is 1,598. So we can just go to our sales record and verify that. So if I come here, this is for the units, and we are looking for the total sales in the North region. This is a North region. And let's go down and verify. So what was the amount again? Okay, so I have the North region here. I have 1,200 98. Let me check and be sure. In the east, okay, this is the east region here. So let's go to the east region and check. So this is one east region. Not this. If we go down again, this is another east region. Let's go down. I'll just look for that amount here. Yes, I think this is it here in the east region. Yeah, it was sold by Bob Williams. Yeah, yeah. Bob Williams sold the highest amount here. Then for the north region also, the highest amount that was sold was actually 2,598, and so on and so on. So you can actually look for the max, you can look for the average, you can look for the mean, then you can also count the number of items that was sold in that region. So if I use this here, this is showing that 8 items were sold in the um, east region. Then in the north region, 9 items were sold. In the south region, 9 items were sold. In the east region, 8 items was also sold. So you can use this option to actually get total, just get whatever you want to achieve. So, but you can actually use this to achieve them. So I'll just leave this back to sum because that's what it is in the default value. Then you could also want to have them in percentage. So I want to know the percentage of the grand amount that was sold. So I'll just pick on this here. So over here, we know that in the north region, we have a total sales of 35% of the total amount. In the east region, we have 31%. Then in the south region, we have 13%. In the west, we have 18%. So you can use this to also determine percentage if that's what you want to get. So I'll just leave it to none because that's what we have here. All right. So I hope this is very clear. Okay. So if it's not clear, please I just leave your question in the comments, then we'll go through it again. All right. So what we have actually done so far is to check for a product and also work on each of those products. Now, another thing you can also do is to also use this filter field here. So you can use the filter field, you can use the column field and the value. Now, how can you do that? Now, let's assume that we want to know what region has the highest sales and who has the highest sales in that region. So we want to know, first of all, who has the highest sales and in what region. So I'm going to bring my region to be up here. Then I'll bring my salesperson to be in rows. And then I want my total sales to be somewhere around here. So if you look at my table now, you will see I now have region here. Then over here, I have the sum of sales, and then I have each of my values here. So now, this region is in all region. Now, I want to know who has the highest number of sales in the north region. So I'll just come here and filter my item here. So I want to see north region. I'm going to remove this other region. I only want north region, so I'll choose this option here. Now, from what I'm seeing here, John actually have the highest in the northern region. In fact, not just the highest, John is the only person selling in the north region. Let's see south region. Bob Williams has the highest sales and is the only person selling in that region. So what I can say now from this our data, each person belongs to a specific region. For example, Bob Williams is the only one in the northern region. So supposing there were other people that sells along with him in the northern region, you'd have seen their name here. So Bob Williams would just be the one topping the chart. But in this case, only Bob Williams is in the northern region, which makes sense to some extent. But to me, I think we can do more to this because this actually is not giving me what I'm looking for specifically. Now, I can also decide to do other things. I can also decide to know what uh, payment method is used in what region. I want to know what payment method is used mostly in those region. So I'll remove this. I'll remove this. Then I'm going to bring payment method to this area here, and then I'm going to bring my region to the row here. So I'll remove this filter I have here too. All right, so these are all my region here. Now I want to know what payment method is used in the region. So first of all, I want to know cash. All right, so over here you will see in the west region actually have the highest use of cash. So where people use cash mostly is in the west region. So right now we can now start making sense from what we have in payment method. So it means that if we are looking at our data, we would prioritize west region when it comes to cash sales. If we are considering cash sales, the west region will be prioritized. Now let's look at other sales. I want to see credit card because credit card is used more. I want to know which region they use credit card the most. So I'll click on this. Now over here, I can see that the northern region has the highest number of credit card uses. The northern region, you see it here. It has the highest number of credit card used. So if we are considering which area we should push credit card more on, it should be in the north region, followed by the east region. But the west, cash should be prioritized there. So if we are advising those people based on this result that we have gotten, we are going to tell them that, oh, don't send in much. If it's POS they are sending around, they should send lesser POS to the west region. Then the north region should have more of the POS transaction. So do you understand me? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. If you do not understand, please you can just leave a comment here. All right. So then let's find out which one has a credit card, more credit card, debit card rather. The east, or rather, no, the west. Wow. So the west does not only use more of cash, they also use more of debit card. So if we are now looking at debit card, when it comes to debit card, the West should be prioritized when it comes to debit card. Now, this will begin to make sense a lot as you look at your items here. Now, you can also decide that, okay, um, I want to know which region my customer, I want to check this, which region in which region of which region in my data actually sorry which customer segments rather what customer segments actually use more of this region. So I'm going to move this to this filter here because I want to now filter my data based on my customer segment. So I'll come here, I'll choose business. For business, now, for the business, they did more purchase in the north region. I think this makes sense. If you look at this here, this is beginning to make sense because what this I'm looking at, what it means is that many customers actually use patronize more of the northern region. And when they patronize, they use their credit card for those transactions. So let's see business. Let's see which area they use more. Okay, in the East region. So we have more businesses that actually make purchases in the East region. So you can use this filtering to actually do a lot of stuff on your data. Okay. All right. So I'm going to uncheck this. I'm going to uncheck this region. Now, what I want to also look at, I want to know what products or what category of products sells more, and what region does those category of products sells. So I'm going to move this to category here, and then I'm going to move the region to my filter. So I want to filter category of items in the north region, in those regions. So over here I have in all the region I have accessories, I have electronics, I have furnitures. So over here in the total sales, electronics sells more than any items. So we can advise the company to actually prioritize electronics. That means they should ship in more electronics products to all their outlets. Now, I want to now know which particular region have these products, buy more of these electronic products. So first of all, I want to try the North region. Let's see what the North region has. All right, so from here, you see that North region has the highest number of sales when it comes to electronics. They sell more, people buy more electronic in the northern region than any other region here. Let's go to the south and see what products they buy more. Okay, so in the south, you see people buy more furnitures. So in the south region, people buy more furnitures. So when we are advising these people, we advise them that when it comes to furniture, so it sells more in the south region rather. Then when it comes to electronics, electronics sells more in the north region. So let's see this other region, east region. Let's see which product sells more in the east region. In the east region, electronics also sells more than other products, because this is 1,947. Yes, it sells more. Electronics sells more in the east region. So let's check this other region, the last one, the west region. Let's see what they buy more there. Oh, in the west region also, people buy more of electronics items. So two regions that sells more of electronic items. Number one is the west. Then number two is the northern region. So those two regions, they should be prioritized when it comes to electronics items. Okay. Yes. So you can just use that to actually work on your data and then give a response. Okay. So these are just different ways you can use this, and then you get your items. All right. So another area you can also look at is for your pivot table. If we click on this analyze items, you would see, let me bring this in. So I'm going to bring in my category to here, and then I'm going to bring total sales down here, give you my products. Now in this area here, I have northern region, I have other regions, I have various field. Now, you might not be comfortable or you might not be satisfied with the number of feed you have here. You could decide that you want to create other additional feed that you can use for your continue doing your analysis. In this area, you can use this field option here. And what this field option will do, the field option is in the pivot table analyze tab. So what it does is to help you add like an additional feed. let's take for example, I want a feed um where I can have where I want to have the who sells more and who sells less, like a remark, more like a remark. So, and I want to use a function to do that grading. So I want it that when somebody sells, when the sales is higher than a particular amount, it should be tagged as high sales. And then when it's below some particular amount, it should be tagged as lower sales. Now you can create an additional tab and do the configuration here, or you can also use your pivot table for the configuration. And let's assume that I want to just do those configuration on my pivot table. Now what I can do is to come to the pivot table analyze, and then I'll click on this field here. Now I want to calculate the feed. Okay, then the feed name, I'm going to call it remark. And then what do I want to be in the field? I want to insert an if function. Now you'll have done this before. We have done this before, so this is not new to you. So I want to say if the total price, which is this, if the total price is greater than, let's say, 500, yeah, it's greater than, I think 500 is still, let's say 900 or 800. So now I want to say if it is higher than 500, then what we want to say, what we want to leave as a remark is we want to say it is high sale. So then if it is lower, then we want to say this is a low sale. So I'll close my brackets here. So I'm saying right now, if this is greater than this, then this is lesser, then we have this. So I'm just going to insert this into the feed. And if I click on OK here and then let's search for it. Yeah, you'll see remark here. You see remark here. I'm just going to remove this out. I'll just bring in my, okay. What I want to have is the product. So I want to have the product, and I want to have the total sales here. And let's see the remark here, if remark will show. Okay, it's not showing any value here. Why do we have this here? This. Let me just see this, if this will work. It's not working. Okay, so I'm going to put in another one. Then I just want you to see what this looks like. So I'll come here, calculate. So this time I'm just going to say total sum, which is more like an example. Total sum. Now for our total sum should be the unit price of our items multiplied by, sorry, the units of an item multiplied by the unit price. So it's more like getting this total sales also. So I'll add this to the field, then I'll add this option here. So right now you would see that we now have sum of total sum or something. So, and for the sum of total sum is actually the multiplication of your unit price or your unit item multiplied by your unit price, which kind of show you how you can actually handle your data. I actually don't know why this didn't work, but it's okay. But what I'm trying to say in this particular feed, when you use this feed, it's more like you want to insert your own function inside your pivot table. Then you can use them for your analysis. Yeah, so basically these are just the different areas we can cover in the pivot table. Now, one of those things you can also do with pivot table after you have done your work. Let's assume after you have done your analysis, you want to present them to people. So you might not be presenting this exactly this way. You might want to use the pivot table chart or pivot chart to actually make your presentation. For example, we want to know who has the highest sales. Remember, we bring this here, and then we'll bring this here, total sales. Okay, so you see here that we have this. Now, if we want to present this um, to our audience or to people, we can use the pivot table chart. Now, this can now tell us, we can now use this to represent what we can provide. So with this here, you can now use this to present to people what your item looks like. So you see we have Bob Williams, we have Johnson Smith, Mary Johnson, and Salary Davis. So you will see John Smith actually have the highest sales. His sales is over $5,000, which is what you can use. So I can copy this and paste in Microsoft Word, and then this will now do um, my analysis for me. So I hope you understand that. And yeah, so basically, this is how you use your pivot table. So if you have any question or there's an area where you want me to talk more in, please just leave comments in the comment section. Then we can now touch that later on in the class. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, please try to subscribe to our channel. We have other fantastic courses that will be coming up, and they'll be for free. And so you'll be notified when it's up and when it's time. Please subscribe. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll be calling this class off at this point here. Yeah. All right. So thank you a lot. I appreciate your contribution. Yeah. All right, Coffee, thank you. Admin Destin, thank you. Oh, Emmanuel Esther, thank you also. Thank you, everybody. All right. All right, guys. So if there's any other feed you want us to look at in this, what we have done so far, please let us know so we can talk more in that area. So thank you very much. And this will be our last class for Excel. So we are going to save this video for those people that are not present so they can now review it and watch again. All right, bye.